She doesn't understand why she wants him. He's not the best looking, not the wealthiest, not even the most charming. In fact, he barely speaks. He doesn't text her good morning. He doesn't flood her with praise. He doesn't orbit her like the others. And yet, he haunts her. He's silent but present, detached but not indifferent. He holds something no one else dares to carry, power over himself. And in that rare energy, she feels something ancient awaken, a gravitational pull that defies her logic and disturbs her certainty. This is not love. Not yet. This is magnetism. And Nietzsche would say, of course she falls for him. Because in a world of endless validation and digital flattery, the man who doesn't chase becomes a myth. You see, Nietzsche wasn't a relationship coach. He didn't write about attraction in the modern sense, but his philosophy, his thunderous, unapologetic vision of human nature, speaks directly to the psychology of desire, to the polarity between the masculine will and the feminine pull, to the dance between dominance and submission, not as cruelty, but as energy. And central to this attraction is one principle: power does not plead. When a man is governed by desire, he becomes transparent, predictable. His need bleeds through every word, every compliment, every "just thinking of you" message sent into the digital void. But the Nietzschean man is different. He is not ruled by the world. He does not bend to emotion. He does not offer his presence cheaply. He doesn't ignore her to hurt her. He simply doesn't need her. And paradoxically, that absence becomes irresistible. This is where psychology and philosophy intersect. If you're still here, it's because this hits deeper than just content. So take a second, subscribe. This is where surface ends and substance begins. Attraction, real, primal attraction, is not built in the obvious. It is built in tension. Women, particularly feminine women, are drawn to the man they cannot fully possess, the man who does not collapse into their orbit, the man who remains partially unknown. Why? Because mystery is magnetic, because control is attractive, because in every woman's psyche, beneath the layers of social conditioning, there is the craving to be chosen, not by the desperate, but by the dangerous, by the man who could have anyone, but remains sovereign. And Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch, the man who transcends, who creates his own values, who is not enslaved by the herd, fits this archetype precisely. She doesn't want the man who grovels. She wants the man who walks. Imagine this. Two men stand before her. The first sends her flowers, texts her 5 times a day, tells her she's beautiful before she even asks. He's sweet, eager, emotionally open. The second says very little. He sees her but doesn't chase her. His compliments are rare but surgical. He vanishes for days, not as a tactic, but as a reflection of his reality. He is busy building, focused, unapologetically absent. Who captures her? The one who's present or the one who's missing? Every woman answers differently. But the one driven by feminine energy, the one who yearns to surrender, is drawn to the man whose world is bigger than her. Because to surrender to him is to be consumed by something larger than herself. And Nietzsche would nod. This is the eternal return of desire, the seeking of strength. The modern world confuses availability with love. But love, especially the kind that lasts, begins not with overexposure, but with mystery. The man who is too available loses polarity. He becomes another mirror of her wants, her feelings, her drama. She doesn't need another reflection. She needs a container. And the Nietzschean man, he contains, not by controlling her, but by controlling himself. He doesn't chase dopamine. He doesn't rush to fix emotions. He doesn't entertain drama for entertainment's sake. He stands, unmoved. And that stillness drives her insane, because she's never seen it before. Here's the paradox. The man she wants the most is the man she can't reach, and the more she leans in, the more he stands still. This isn't manipulation, it's magnetism. And magnetism by nature creates distance, polarity, a charge between opposites. Nietzsche understood that willpower, der Wille zur Macht, is not just about conquering the world, it's about conquering the self. And the man who resists the urge to chase, who instead channels his energy into purpose, becomes gravitational. He does not orbit, he becomes the sun. She asks herself, why isn't he texting me back? Does he even care? Is he too proud, too busy, too cold? And in every question, her desire deepens, because she senses that his distance isn't passive, it's purposeful, that he sees her and chooses not to fold. And so she waits, obsesses, plays cool, but checks her phone in secret. Not because he made her feel small, but because he made her feel uncertain. And uncertainty breeds longing. Modern dating advice tells men to communicate more, to validate often, to reassure her constantly. But Nietzsche would ask, why would you give away your power for comfort? A man who centers his life around a woman's feelings does not inspire desire. He inspires resentment. Because even if she gets what she wants, his constant attention, she loses what she craves. Polarity. Polarity is not built on ease. It is built on tension, on the edge, on restraint. And the man who ignores her, he is the edge personified. Let's be precise. The Nietzschean man doesn't ignore to hurt. He ignores to build. He withholds because his energy is not infinite. He chooses absence because he is occupied with becoming. That doesn't make him selfish. It makes him sacred. He has chosen the path of becoming the Übermensch, the self-mastered man. His validation comes not from being loved, but from living aligned. And when she senses that, when she realizes that his attention is not freely given, but earned, she desires it more. She wants to matter to the man who doesn't need her. Because if he finally chooses her, it means something. It means she passed the test of time, silence, and substance. It means she was worth breaking the silence for. Nietzsche once wrote, "When one has not had a good father, one must create one." The same principle applies to power, purpose, and even love. When one has not seen true strength, one must become it. And she sees that in him, not because he dominates her, but because he doesn't collapse for her. His strength isn't loud, it isn't abusive, it isn't performative. It's internal, and internal power is the rarest aphrodisiac. He becomes the gravity she cannot resist. And as he remains silent, she hears everything. His focus, his purpose, his untouchability. It offends her, it arouses her, it humbles her. Because this man does not seek approval, he seeks ascension. And that makes him unforgettable. The silence becomes unbearable. Not because he ghosted her, but because he didn't collapse into her gravity. He didn't orbit. He didn't respond the way she's used to. And so the mind, that beautiful, chaotic, emotional labyrinth, begins to invent answers. Maybe he's talking to someone else. Maybe he's too proud. Maybe he just doesn't care. But underneath those questions is a deeper realization. He's not ignoring her to play games. He's not punishing her. He simply lives in a world she cannot fully enter. A world forged in fire, in solitude, in self-creation, in Nietzsche's sacred realm of becoming. And unless she rises to meet him there, she will always be on the outside, longing for a door he never promises to open. This is not cruelty. This is power. She begins to feel tested, not by him, but by herself. Because he is not emotionally available in the conventional sense, he doesn't shower her with warmth. He doesn't hold space for every insecurity. He doesn't perform emotional labor on demand. and this forces her to face something no one else dares to make her confront: her own unworthiness. Not because he says it, but because his absence reflects her lack of center. The Nietzschean man holds up a mirror, not by criticizing, but by not participating. He doesn't feed the drama. He doesn't rush to reassure. He doesn't play savior. And in doing so, he breaks the spell of codependent attraction. The feminine, by nature, tests. It's not malicious. It's instinctual. Testing is how the feminine seeks safety, strength, and leadership. When she raises her voice, when she pushes his buttons, when she withdraws affection, she's not trying to destroy him. She's asking, silently, "Can you hold me in the storm I don't yet understand?" And most men fail. They overreact. They over-explain. They get emotionally tangled. But the Nietzschean man, he stands still, not to dominate, but to signal that her chaos cannot drown his center. And when she realizes that her emotional spirals bounce off his groundedness, she begins to feel something that shocks her: trust. Because in his stillness, she feels held, not in words, but in presence. Not in caretaking, but in containment. And in a world where most men bend, shrink, or explode under pressure, his calm becomes divine. Here's the truth she doesn't want to admit. She doesn't want a man who makes her his entire world. She wants a man whose world is so rich, so disciplined, so alive, that she must rise to earn a place in it. This is the Nietzschean model of relationship, not merging, but mastery, each person sovereign, whole, each bringing value, not need. Each existing as a full sun, not a moon orbiting the other's validation. The modern narrative tells us love should be constant communication, full transparency, endless reassurance. But Nietzsche whispers something darker and truer. Become who you are. And sometimes that becoming requires turning away, not to punish, but to evolve. She begins to realize the man who ignores her isn't ignoring her. He's investing in himself, and that is the threat. Because if he doesn't need her love to feel worthy, if he doesn't use her praise to feel strong, if he doesn't collapse under her emotion to prove he cares, then she must confront the possibility that her beauty, her drama, her allure are not enough. Not because she lacks, but because he is full. And that fullness is what magnetizes her. He doesn't need her approval to move. He doesn't seek her energy to feel alive. He doesn't ask for her trust. He earns it by being immovable. This is Nietzsche's will to power, not over her, but within himself. And it is that internal power, that sacred self-reliance, that redefines attraction. But let's pause here, because this kind of man is rare and dangerous. Why? Because the same qualities that make him magnetic also make him unchaseable. He's not emotionally cold. He's emotionally disciplined. He doesn't lack empathy. He just doesn't perform it. He doesn't ghost. He chooses intentional absence. And if she demands constant proximity, instant replies, emotional availability on demand, she will feel starved. Because the Nietzschean man gives with precision. His attention is not a faucet, it is a ritual. Rare, focused, earned. And when he does give, it lands like thunder. Because now it means something. A compliment from him feels like a revelation. A glance from him burns deeper than paragraphs. A moment of presence from him dissolves hours of anxiety. Because she knows, whether consciously or not, that he chose this moment. And that means she's no longer chasing the ghost of his silence. She's now dancing in the gravity of his intention. This is the art of strategic absence. And Nietzsche, who lived in chosen isolation for most of his life, understood the sacred nature of distance. He knew that to maintain power, a man must not overexpose his soul. He must not bleed emotionally for every woman who enters his orbit. He must protect his solitude, not out of fear, but out of reverence, because what is revealed too easily is discarded just as fast, and what remains cloaked in shadow draws light toward it. She will test him again. She'll say he's cold, emotionally unavailable, arrogant. She'll bait him into conflict, withdraw her energy, flirt with others, demand his attention. And again, he will stand still. Not out of indifference, but out of knowledge. He knows that entering her storm too soon will make him weak in her eyes. That meeting chaos with chaos destroys polarity. That true leadership is not control, it's containment. And when she finally breaks, when she finally sees that he won't be moved by noise, she softens, not in defeat, in surrender. Because he has proven, without words, that he is the man she cannot shake. This is Nietzschean magnetism. Power, not performance. Presence, not pleading. Discipline, not desperation. She didn't fall for the man who adored her every second. She fell for the man who saw her and didn't rush to own her, who walked through her fire and stayed whole, who ignored her games and answered only truth. Because in a world of men who chase, the man who leads without begging becomes king.